everyone, and welcome to our next creator chat. Gabby here, and today I am speaking to an artist who has created a fantastic webcomic and graphic novel, Witchy. So welcome, Ariel Ries. Yay.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here and having a chat. How, the world's a bit crazy at the moment. How have you been coping? Have you been up to anything fun? Relaxing, creating, sleeping?
Yeah, what have I been up to? I've been coping okay, especially like I feel like gotten now into a rhythm where I'm sort of used to it, and I'm making sure that, like, even though I'm not going out to see people, I'm making time to actually like call people and, have like groups of friends, watch movies and that sort of thing. So that's been nice. And also it's sort of been an excuse to catch up with a lot of friends that I don't usually see, because I studied in Denmark. So I have a lot of like European friends that we've all had nothing to do. So it's very easy for us to manage time zones on the weekends and have a little hangout. So that's been nice. Yeah, sleeping a lot as well. But yeah, creating too.
That sounds very fun. Yeah, I also found myself catching up with people that you normally don't
Yeah, exactly.
speak to or just have the time. So in one way, it's been quite nice.
Yeah, checking in on everyone.
Yeah. Have you been back from Denmark long?
Oh, yeah, for like 2 years now. I graduated in, graduated January 2018. So
Okay. Yeah.
Been back. Yeah.
Like as a child, were you into reading graphic novels or comic books, like style books?
Yeah, I was. But I sort of like, I wasn't really allowed to. Well, that's like incorrect. But like, there are a few like graphic novels and comics that my parents had that were like, we had like a Calvin and Hobbes book, and what else do we have? Like some of Matt Groening's like old stuff. Yeah, before he did The Simpsons. But whenever we'd go to Borders and I'd sort of stare at like the manga section, my parents would be like, no, you can't get those. But what you can get is like the how to draw manga books, because those are instructional and they will teach you things. But you can't get the it was very much that it's like junk food reading mindset. Yeah, which yeah. I bet they're regretting now, but but I also managed, like, I read a lot of webcomics because that was like, they were free and they were online, and I could just get on onto the computer, and yeah,
easily accessible. Also thrown back with Borders. I don't know how many people would remember that bookstore.
Yeah. I know. It was always we used to visit it quite often. It was like a fun treat. We'd all like go and spread out over the store and pick up different books.
Always
and I was always sorry.
They were always like really big stalls, so you could go just go find a place to sit, and then you weren't disturbed for like hours.
Yeah, exactly. And they always had like a massive like graphic novel and manga section, which I would always just like stare at, even if I wasn't allowed to buy anything.
Yeah. Just go over there and just flick through some things and be like, ooh.
Yeah. Sometimes it was like, oh, there's a titty here, like that's not appropriate.
I remember when I was like flicking through some of them, I'm like, oh, okay, it's a bit
graphic, raunchy.
Yeah. Although I still find that now, like I work in a school, so up in the senior library, sometimes like girls request them, and look, that's all fine, and I always click through them and I'm like, wow, it's still really quite
Nothing
did you get the instructional drawing
Oh,
manual?
I did. Yeah. I still have some of them. So like they're like, I mean, some of the ones I got were of dubious quality, but some of them, like, they're actually quite, well drawn and that sort of thing. So I keep them. I mean, I have like a lot of my old like childhood books. Yeah, it's nice to flip through them every once in a while to remember my roots.
Yeah.
Where did I come from?
Yeah. Reminisce.
Yeah.
Were you always into drawing and creating different styles, or did you have a set style, or what was it like when you were?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been really into drawing, like ever since I was like, I think like as early as 7, I have like memories of seeing this drawing that one of my friends was doing, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I like tried to copy like her style. And then later on, it was like I was really into Pokemon, like obsessively so. And I would like trace the drawings. And I was like, oh, I have to memorize how to draw Pikachu off by heart. So I was, yeah, I think from an early age, I was like, I gotta, like, I was really interested in sort of trying out different styles and like copying different artists that I like and that sort of thing. And I was on, there are a lot of like online drawing communities that I was on from a young age. And like, they were mostly other like kids, like from anywhere between age 9 to 15, all just like sharing drawings and that sort of thing. So that was like a really nice starting out place, like community feeling.
Yeah, that's really cool. I never knew about those communities.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those who haven't read Witchy, webcomic or actual book, same thing, but what can you give us a quick what it's about?
Yeah, it is about it's set in a world where everyone is a witch, regardless of gender, and the length of your hair determines the strength of your magic. So if you have short hair, your magic is generally weaker, and the longer your hair gets, the more powerful you are. Unfortunately, those with hair that's deemed too long are thought of as threats to the kingdom and are annihilated, which is called a witch burning. And it follows the protagonist Nyneve, who her father was killed. I'm like, what's my comic about? Her father is killed in a witch burning when she's quite young, and so she hides her hair, her long hair, because she herself is afraid of becoming an enemy of the kingdom.
Pretty good. I never knew how to pronounce her name, so.
Actually, I just realized, like, I said Nyneve. It was when I originally came up with it. It was Nyneve, but I'm trying lately to shift it to Nyneve because that's like a more like accurate to the setting pronunciation of the name. So just replace me saying Nineveh just then and just like edit that into
Nineveh.
Yeah.
I always I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and sometimes I change the pronunciation of the name, book 1 and book 2, so it's okay. Yeah. And I love that concept too, like the longer your hair is, the more powerful you are, but you can't have hair too long. It's such a cool concept that I know I haven't seen in my readings before. Although
yeah, you and I would both.
We would be very not important.
Yeah. I thought it was like an interesting balance to have, like, you can't just be like invincibly powerful with super long hair. There is a trade-off, and so it sort of creates a more interesting dynamic in the story, I think.
Yeah, it's like it's all those boundaries. Like everyone has power, but you can't have too much power, and there's all these limitations, even though. So it's still very controlled.
Yeah. Well, yeah. A big like theme of the story is like the control of the sort of regime under which everyone lives is very controlling, and it hurts everyone. So yeah.
And so yeah, it started as a web comic. Did you, because being in those drawing communities, was it easier to start the web comic because you've been reading it and you'd seen that format, growing up?
Yeah. It was sort of like, I remember, I think like basically from like age 13, I was reading a lot of webcomics from people like of similar ages to me, probably like a little bit older, but I was always really attracted to it as a medium because it was so accessible. Everyone, like, you didn't have to get a publisher or anything. So I basically when I was really young, I was like, I'm gonna make a webcomic. And obviously like I started like making all these characters and starting to write stories, and never got around to it because I was a child with the life and all of that. And it's probably good too, because they wouldn't have been particularly good stories if I had started then. But so it took me a while to get around to like properly making one. I actually did make one, I think when I was in year 10. I got about 5 pages in and then realized it was a lot of work, and I was like, I actually should focus on school instead of this. So I stopped that pretty quick. But yeah, once like after my first year in uni, I was like, I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna actually try it for real now. So yeah, it was a bit of a journey, but yeah, it was always something that I was attracted to. That I was like, one day I'll do this, because it was sort of like reading webcomics as a kid had been such a foundational thing for me. So I sort of wanted, like, the appeal of webcomics to me is like everyone can read them. They're accessible to everyone. It doesn't matter. I mean, so long as you have a computer, that was always really appealing to me. And that's also why, like, I kept the webcomic. I wanted to keep the webcomic online. Even after I published the first graphic novel. I mean, first of all, because it keeps going after the graphic novel is done, but yeah.
And what was that like? Because you've been writing the webcomic for a while now. It's a few years?
Yeah, stupidly long time. Like, is this year my 6th anniversary? I started in 2014, so yes, this year was the 6th anniversary, which is an extremely long time, considering I'm maybe like a little over a third into the story right now. So,
wow. Yeah. What was it like seeing like your webcomic become like a graphic novel that people can hold and love, and having
It was really exciting. Like, I think the part of the production that I enjoyed the most was sort of like redrawing, like updating some of the art, some of the colors, and getting all the lettering for the first, how long was it? Like the first 3 chapters completely revamped, because it made the books look so much more like fresh, and it's like, it's all cohesive now. That was really exciting. And it's just been nice to like have a publisher do that stuff for me. Like, you can do the advertising and you are doing the selling, and I can just sort of now sit back and watch it all happen from afar. Sorry. So it's been cool. Yeah. I was very flattered when I initially was approached by Lion Forge to to publish it. So yeah.
I had seen some of the webcomic. I hadn't read all of it, and then when I was just looking for some books to buy for work, I came across it and I was like, "Ooh, exciting!"
That's cool. Yeah, like how do you come across it? Because I'm interested in knowing like how people find. I know librarians, you'll have your own special.
Where you start looking for something, and then all of a sudden you're down this rabbit hole on the internet. Like I've seen it a few times throughout the years, and yeah, I've always been like, oh yeah, that's, and then I go back to it and then I read a bit more, and so yes, it's always, and you sort of get down, and then on Twitter as well, and then people see things.
Oh,
yeah, so it's all very. I just get in a web of internet.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is quite. I'm going to keep reading.
Yeah.
So that's how I find things, but it's a bit odd, but that's all right. Story book. Yeah, how did it's been going such a long time. From when you initially started writing it, how has the story changed a lot, or how has it developed and changed through the years?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is it's always been stupidly long. It's always been like around, like, I think from the beginning I was like, this is going to be 1,000 pages, and I just have to commit to that. But yeah, it's definitely developed over the years. Like, it's become, I feel like the plot has become a bit more radical than it initially was. Like the sort of messages and goals that I have with the story, and it's definitely matured, not in a way necessarily that it's like it's become for older readers, but just like what I'm trying to say with it has matured as I've grown up, because I started writing it when I was like 18 or 19, so as you can imagine, the sort of gap of maturity between I'm 26 now, the gap of sort of maturity that I have gained over that time has I'm a very different person. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Being 26 myself, I completely understand that.
Yeah.
Good change. So,
yeah. So yeah. And like I think still sort of I always had in mind, I had the start planned out and I had the end planned out, and those 2 points have still, obviously the start has stayed the same because the start is the start and I can't change that, but the end point has stayed mostly the same, but I think the way we get there has matured a bit, although like I have to say, like the most of the plot points has stayed the same. But yeah, like when I first started it, like I was like, I know where I want to get and I'll just see how I get there. But so I didn't have an outline at all, because why would I need that for a 1,000-page comic?
So much time.
Yeah. I honest to God, I didn't write like a full proper outline for it until 2017. So like I had like sort of dot points, but I was like, okay, I should probably, like, it actually wasn't until publishers were like, hey, we may be interested in publishing a book. I was like, oh, I should probably write that for you. Yeah, okay. So it still wasn't even me. It was outside influence that had to convince me. But yeah, so yeah, that's my point.
No, it's pretty cool that like the ending has still stayed the same, even though it's been going on for so long. Like that point is definite. I know when some people start, like, you start something and you have this idea of how it's going to end, and obviously because it's gone for so long that the end morphs into something else. But no, I think that's pretty cool that the end and the conclusion is still the same, and it's just how you're getting there has changed and adapted as time has gone on.
Yeah. I too am sort of like, it's kind of it's interesting how I stuck with it. I think part of it is due to the fact that, like, although it wasn't like entirely my intent when I first began, but like the general story structure like stays pretty close to what you would consider to be like the hero's journey, or like the 3-act structure, like more or less. So yeah, it's sort of, I think for the kind of story I'm telling, there are only so many endings that you can you can end up with. But yeah, it's how you get there that makes it interesting.
The old journey, as they say, it's the journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing that I really enjoy about the comics is that the characters are so diverse. Did you have a intention behind that, or did it just happen?
Yeah, it was definitely intentional. I think like when I first started it, I was really like, I'm half Asian myself. I'm half Indonesian. I was really like, especially growing up in Australia, like I really felt the lack of Asian representation growing up. Like I found that quite difficult. Like I also grew up in a very white neighborhood, so I was like, I'm like, yeah, there are just like so many like episodes in my life where I remember like people, like a lot of kids almost like didn't realize that brown people existed. I know, it was wild, but yeah, like, so it was really like something that I felt that I missed out on as a kid. So it was really important to me, like, hey, I'd really like to have you know, a really diverse cast that, you know, it not just sort of satisfies my own like desire for representation as an Indonesian person, but that could potentially, you know, other people from around like Asia and like Asian diaspora could read it and be like, oh, hey, there's like, you know, there's an Indian character, there's a, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Like, for instance, recently in the webcomic, currently there's a Persian character, and one of my Persian friends was like, oh, like, it was really exciting to me that you know, had a Persian character in the comic. So that was really nice. Yeah. So it comes from a desire to like reflect the reality of the world, but also sort of, I often joke that that Witchy is the comic where everyone's brown and no one is straight. So obviously that's not the exact reality of the world, but an enhanced reality, perhaps.
I know, reading a lot myself, there is not a lot of diversity when it comes to things. Still, which is quite confusing to me because we're in 2020, and you would assume that things that you just would assume.
Yeah.
Farther along. But I know with I read a lot of young adult books about mental health problems, and still that is such and gender issues as well. So it's still not as they're not as frequent as other books, and they're so important for young adults to have that representation in their like the stuff that they're reading, to make them feel that they're not, you know, so different or so alone, or something to connect with.
Yeah, it's particularly interesting what you say about the mental health, like there not being a lot of like mental health representation, because I feel like every child in this upcoming generation has like some kind of, if not like a deep anxiety, something else. So yeah.
There are a lot of books, yes, but I feel like there's some that I read that are really like, oh, this is not a true, but a very close to what maybe people are feeling. And then there's other books that just write it because they can.
Yeah.
And not necessarily want to represent it as well.
Yeah.
But yes, no, a lot of, again, you'd think in this day and age.
Yeah, I try to, the thing I really strive for in, you know, in representing other cultures is that authenticity. That's really important to me. It's not just representation and diversity in name. It's actually like, oh, like I can see, like I want other people to say, oh, I can see you've done actual research into these cultures, into these people, and that sort of thing. Like that's really, I try really hard, and obviously I can't. I'm not perfect, and I could always improve. But yeah, I think as long as you have that, desire to just keep learning and listen to other people. That's really important in representing everyone, or as many people as you can.
Yeah. Well, you do feel that when you read it. Like it doesn't feel it. You know, you can read something and it either feels authentic or it feels not so authentic, or that the author or creator has actual intent behind creating these characters, and wants to do it well. And I feel that with Witchy when I have read it. So
I'm glad to hear that. Good to hear.
So no, it is a really great read, guys. Get on it. So when one of the pages released are they every week? Yeah. And do you planned a few weeks ahead? What?
Yeah. So currently I have a delicious 5 pages ahead, which is good. It's actually only been since lockdown started, actually, that I've built up like a proper buffer in advance, because throughout most of the run of Witchy, I've been doing it on a week by week basis, or I'll be like 1 week ahead. But obviously, currently like I said before, I have the whole outline written for the story, and the chapter I'm writing at the moment, I've written the whole script for that. So I'm currently about almost 2/3 of the way into this chapter. So so I have that written. And then it's just a matter of drawing the thumbnails, which is sort of like the tiny scribbly versions of the pages that I then copy, like make large, and becomes a template for the actual final pages. But I usually do those so for instance, like I said, I have 5 weeks of updates in advance. I'll do in 3 weeks time, I'll be like, I should start thumbnailing the next batch, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do it in advance. It took me about a week to get this current batch done, so I can actually get roughly a page done every day when I'm working on it, but I have other projects that I'm working on in the meantime, so yeah. It's nice to get it all done and then focus on other stuff for a bit.
Yeah. How many pages of Witchy is it? Over 300 pages that you've done? Close to?
Yeah. It's currently at 360 maybe. Okay. Yeah. So I think or is it more than that? No idea. Don't know how many pages are in my own comic. I think I'm around 360.
The fans really have some, time to.
Exactly.
Lots going for a while.
Yeah. The book is 280, I think. Maybe 270 of actual readable pages, not extras or anything. So yeah, there's another 100. That's not. I'm terrible at math. It's not 80 pages or whatever since the end of the book. So
yeah. Well, at least the fans know that they're getting at least 3 more books out of it. So that's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots to look forward to.
Can you tell us about any other projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, like, I do a bit of freelance slash, like, at the moment I'm sort of working slowly on like an illustration portfolio, but I'm also currently actively working on another pitch for a different graphic novel, just sort of depending on how, obviously can't say too much about it, like just like how the second Witchy book, like it will happen, but it's like, when will that happen, like that sort of thing. So it might be so it's sort of a second project to juggle alongside Witchy. It's I don't want to say too much about it, but it is a sci-fi romance set 300 years in the future. It's probably not an exact analog of this world, but and it's about a boy who develops the power to manifest his dreams in real life, including his high school crush. Oh. So, yeah,
that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah. So
I will want to read that. So that is
okay. So I'm
one tick you got.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So just working. It's pretty much all written out. But it's just a matter of like doing all the additional drawing materials now. So that's it's actually going pretty well. I was like, oh, this is going to take forever to do all this, and it's still going to kind of take forever because I have to do like a lot of sample pages. But the actual like illustrations that I was worried about have not been taking too long so far, so that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I feel like at the start of lockdown I was like not getting anything done, but I think I've finally reached this like a equilibrium where I'm able to be productive again, which is good.
That's probably better than most people. I just kept going to work, so I just kept coming to work.
Yeah. I mean, I say that, but like, did I work yesterday? Not really. It's like you have good days, you have bad days.
But no, that's good. So
yeah,
excited for that one.
Everyone rest up.
Yeah. Not only do we have 700 pages left of Witchy, we also have another one. Yay!
Yeah. So much to look for.
Yeah. Have you been reading anything lately? We normally, in our creator chats, we ask for like 3 recommendations.
Yeah. Big recommendation. A few months ago, I finished reading Gideon the Ninth, which I have not stopped thinking about. It's about lesbian necromancers. There's mystery, there's intrigue. It's super funny. I had a really good time reading that. I feel like I should recommend some graphic novels. I really, one of my favorite things that I've been, I've actually read it all, the original fan translations, but I've been slowly collecting the official English translations now. Shimanami Tasogare, which is also known as Our Dreams at Dusk, which is about a kid in sort of regional-ish Japan who's just realized that he's gay, and it's about him finding this other like LGBTQ community within his town and sort of coming to terms with himself and his identity. And it's really just like beautifully drawn, beautifully told story. And also, I feel like I've mostly been reading manga lately, but another one of my favorites is Dungeon Meshi, or Delicious in Dungeon, which is the English translation, which is about a group of adventurers who the main character loses his sister while they're adventuring in a dungeon, and he's like, oh, and sort of they get kicked out and end up at the start of the dungeon, but she's down, trapped in the dungeon, and they want to revive her, but they have no money to buy anything, so they decide to go into the dungeon and eat all the monsters in there to survive. So yeah. So it's a fun adventure comic, but it's also I love the imagination of like thinking of how to turn monsters into delicious meals. It's good fun.
That does sound like fun, and I didn't wake up today that I would hear the phrase lesbian necromancy.
Well, yeah. Now you have, and you get to.
Well, yeah, that's how fun. So how can people connect with you? Are you on the socials? Obviously, there's webcomic, so get on that.
Yes. If you want to read the webcomic, witchycomic.com, or if you want to buy the book, you can just search Witchy by Ariel Slamet Ries. Otherwise, I'm at Cousin Eggplant on Twitter, or I'm at Ariel Ries on Instagram. So yeah.
Well, there you go. Thank you so much for joining me today, and
thanks.
It's been a great chat.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.